Jeff Raback, Scarborough Southwest. I will be a delegate. I think we all appreciate that we need to grow the tent and we need more people participating in the party. I think that whether or not we define those people as supporters, or whether we get them in as non-fee paying members, or whether we somehow get them in paying $10 as members, I think that's all the red herring. We need a lot more people participating. And something that's an awkward question is there are some riding associations which are small and cozy and comfortable and insular and frankly suspicious of a whole bunch of new people who show up and say, hey, we want to participate. Call them what you will, we want to participate. We don't just want to give you our vote, we want a voice in how this party operates. How, as president, would you approach riding associations that are resistant to new members and new participants?
Thanks. Ryan, can we get you to take that first? Sure. Sorry, was that directed?
Oh, was it directed? No, I don't think so.
That's it, Ron, give to go.
Okay, the mic works. I've heard that a lot, and there's been a thread of worldview coming out of party headquarters that riding associations are the problem. That doesn't match with my experience. You know, I've crossed the country meeting with riding associations, and not just glad handing, but 2-hour detailed discussions. And I found, first of all, I didn't find a lazy liberal out there. We delved into the reason. A lot of those ridings, particularly out west, where it's darn tough to be a liberal, you know, you might have defined them as relatively inactive. They didn't have a lot of people. There are not a lot of liberals out there, which is what we have to change. But the fault wasn't with them. The fault was with the party. The party wasn't producing policies that resonated with people in their communities. The party wasn't sensitive to those communities. The party often parachuted candidates in that were inappropriate for those ridings and sent them back. There are also ridings where it's a club, it's a closed club, but those are relatively few. My sense from what I've seen, the reality on the ground, is that we have to have a cadre of people, regionally based, volunteers, perhaps pay their travel expenses, that go into the ridings in their area, talk to them, understand the way I talk to them, 2-hour session, understand their situation and help them find solutions. And usually, the solution is they're not getting enough support. I believe that occasionally you'll find places where, yes, the riding president or the executive needs to be refreshed. But in those cases, it's not a matter of Ottawa saying, we're going to dissolve this association. It's a matter of actually sitting down with members, having them see the problems, and having them find the solutions. That's the way to really build a riding association.
If I may, I concur with what Ron said, but I would go a step further to make it a short answer. I would make sure that they comply with the rules and constitution of the party. We are supposed to have elections at every EDA every 2 years. That's general meetings are supposed to be called. There's supposed to be elections. A lot of our associations are not doing it. So this is a responsibility that has to be taken by the national executive and by the PTAs. Ensure that the EDAs hold their annual meetings every 2 years and elect, refresh their executives. And create a system of communication between a member or a supporter, however you want to define it, with the national executive, a direct means of communication so that we are aware of what's happening. If you would like to join an association and you are finding a closed door locally, well, you have to be able to tell somebody about it, that you're finding an obstacle somewhere. So those would be 2 of the solutions I would propose.
Well, I'm a little bit tougher because I think there's two sides to this problem. One, when you become a president, you don't even get a job description. It's just like when you become a member. So the first thing I think we need to do is go to all the 308 ridings across the country and have a pretty good look at what constitutes an active association. So let's do an analysis. How many meetings a year are reasonable? How many public meetings do you need? And we have to help ridings make that happen. And I would spend my first effort in focusing on the 1/3 of the ridings in the country where we lost our deposit. And that means creating a speakers bureau starting on the 15th of January and having a tour where we will guarantee 3 speakers to every riding in the country with at least 1 month's notice. But if there are cases, and there are cases, where local associations do not want to open their membership, and it's not all about getting the nomination. Sometimes it's just, in the olden days, when we were in government, when you were the only game in town in Alberta, you got to sit down and have dinner with the minister. So why would you expand the group? And if we see, with a good input from the EDAs, what constitutes a healthy association, we reach out to the associations and they're unprepared to cooperate, then I think we do have to exercise the power of receivership. Any business, I compare it to a franchise, okay? And if I'm out there and somebody is not selling, is selling donuts that are full of, strychnine, we have to do something about it. And it's crazy to say, well, gee whiz, nobody else will join. Give them the tools, help them, be prepared to put your arm to the wheel to make it happen. But if they're not prepared to cooperate, this is not a private fiefdom. And the president of a Liberal EDA represents a whole riding. And we can't afford, I don't think, to pussyfoot around the fact that there are some ridings in the country that don't really want to be open. And we've got to take action on it. I actually ran originally...
Can you wrap up?
Yes. I ran originally in a riding that hadn't been Liberal since 1934. And I received a riding that was in receivership for precisely that reason. And I think it's a good benchmark on how to move it forward.
Right there, there's a question, right? It's going to work, isn't it? No.
Really doesn't like you.
No, there we go.
There you go.
There, it's working. The two groups of ridings, I think, coming out of your question, right? One group would be those that private club, don't want to have anybody else involved, want to keep it tight. The other group is where a lot of ridings out west and in the region in Quebec, there's not a lot of people involved, there's not a lot of activity going on. So in the first group, a couple of things that you got to do right away. One is make it mandatory for any meeting of that riding association to be posted on the website, on the internet, right? And every riding association should have its own website. It shouldn't be something that's done on an ad hoc basis across the country. It should be something that's done centrally, template, so everybody can go to that website and find out when meetings are held. So if the meeting is not posted on the website, it's not an official meeting, period, right? Number one. Number two, absolutely, receivership. There's a tool in the Constitution to put riding into receivership, and I've done it on one occasion as president of LPC, and it had to be done, and if it has to be done, it should be done. Three, with respect to that, open nominations for sitting members will make a big difference to make them compelled to keep their riding associations open and engaged and bringing new people in. So those are the three pieces there. With respect to the other group of ridings, right, where it's not a question of not wanting to have people involved, it's just a question of they've got 2 or 3 people that have been trying to keep this thing alive forever. We've got to stop just looking at the next election as the objective, right? Thinking that we just got to target the ridings, the winnable ridings. Y'all know that that goes on, right? Just target the winnable ridings that we're going to focus on, and then that's what's going to get us into government, and then we don't have to worry about the rest. So you end up having a whole bunch of ridings that are essentially ignored. Instead, we've got to figure out which ridings we think we can win in the next election and focus on them certainly, which ones we've got a 2-election strategy on, which ones we've got a 3-election strategy on, and you start setting objectives for a lot of those ridings out in Alberta, Saskatchewan, elsewhere, where you say, listen, we all know you're probably going to have a tough time winning in the next election, but let's figure out how we can gradually build up so in 2 or 3 elections we can win it. And that's exactly what the NDP did in Quebec. And you look at me, there's an orange wave, but a lot of those ridings, Alexandra, in Quebec, you look at the vote totals in the last 3 elections, they went up, 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 gradually in each one, and then boom, they hit the breaking point. Same thing with how the Conservative Party got their way back in Ontario. And that's exactly what we've got to do in areas where we're not present. And that is what will motivate the members too in those ridings, right? If they know that they've got an achievable objective, number one, and number two, that the party actually cares what they're doing because it's part of the long-term plan to grow the party.